morning, good evening, everyone. This is Luda Kopikina with GAI Insights. Welcome to Daily AI News, where we rate articles essential, important, and optional, bringing you the most important trends that are happening in AI. Today, I have John, Ankaj, and Paul from our regular crew, and I have a wonderful guest, Kevin Petrie, who is from Bark, and he has been into data and AI for a long time. He brings wonderful perspectives. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you. Great to be here. I love your new intro.
Oh, right. Thank you. All right. So let's start with the first article. Ankaj, please.
Sure. Thanks, Luda. So the first one that we have for today comes from HBR, and it is titled, What Happened When Researchers Co-Founded a Startup with AI?
Yes, a very interesting article, actually going through how the founders can use AI, and there's some interesting insights from there. What did you think, John?
I think this is essential. It's a very clever experimental design. This is New York University and Microsoft coming together. And what they did is they had a series of students just start a company and to start from the very beginning, thinking of the first hire as the AI. So it goes through a number of findings that happen when you do this. And it's really interesting. So one of the findings is that the way that the business begins and the analysis and so forth happens is through conversation, that instead of doing through traditional specification and business plans and so forth, the need to communicate to the models so that they can generate that work is critical. Second thing is that they get into a supervisory role. So instead of dealing with the blank page, if you will, and this is every aspect, the business plan, the total addressable market, the organization structure, and so forth, they really start in conversation with the robots and then act as critique and improver. And then the whole notion of what the coda of the common shared understanding of the business, which you normally would think of as, here's our business plan, here's our project, here's the program management and so forth, begins to become the conversations and the history of those conversations, because that is the shared knowledge base, if you will, because the machine then turns that into actual activities. So I think it's absolutely essential reading to get people's minds wrapped around how we could begin to think differently when we begin with a silicon intelligence that is, really at the root and identity of the beginning of a firm.
Wonderful. So essential from John. What did you think about this, Kevin?
I agree. It's essential. Very interesting article. A few interesting dynamics. John summarized it well. They also take an honest look at the downside, the challenges to overcome, or at least to consider. One is that it can give you a false sense of security and precision. So humans really need to oversee things and make sure they're questioning, scrutinizing, and judging the output. So editorial capabilities, or the editorial process and the process of having human horse sense and domain expertise, is critical. So I was glad that they talked about that. It's also interesting. This is MBA students. So this is the next generation of workers who have, I would assume, certainly looking at my kids that are a little younger, far fewer hangups about using AI and far fewer habits to unlearn. And so I think that this will, in fact, have an accelerating effect on startup creation. It'll also have an accelerating effect on startup failures. It'll make people dangerous and make wrong decisions and learn from that as well. But essential.
Thank you, Kevin. Paul, going essential here.
Yeah, definitely essential. And I think the other thing, Kevin, that amplify what you're saying is, just as people start, of course, we're using email and the internet for a startup. This is an essential tool, and it's built right into the fabric. And I think it's not only for new companies, but also new projects. So instead of thinking this as a task amplifier, thinking about this as a project or company essential colleague is obviously where it needs to go. And great article. I wish I had a little more prompting of the examples, but it was a great article.
Okay, Ankash, essential. Okay with that?
Yes, Luda.
All right, essential it is. Let's proceed to the next one.
Okay, the next one comes from
Oh, sorry.
Yes, John?
No, I'm sorry. I couldn't resist. The the importance of experimentation and hands-on use in a domain like this is critical, because they started from to Paul's point about projects, they started from a completely different mindset. This is like the difference of, I don't know, building with bricks versus, it's not a good analogy. Anyway, the whole way they approached the problem, because they started with the robot first, was different. Roles, responsibilities, scaling, the whole routine. So I think it's really important for organizations to carve out parts of their organizations and start from a totally different starting point to begin to understand what the possibility space is. Anyway, sorry.
Absolutely, John. And having been a founder of several startups, and Paul would join in, right? Or projects, a lot of times you don't even know what you're asking. What is the problem? So, right. So, and I love the quote here. It says the problem definition starts with the conversation. Absolutely, right. And here you have a very a good buddy to really bounce things out and understand what is the problem, define it, and then get some insights. So yeah, I think in that sense it's very important.
And then execute at least the first draft, if not more.
Yeah.
And so you have both those things are new.
Right. Okay. Essential it is. Let's proceed.
Okay, the next one comes from A16Z, and it is titled AI Will Supercharge Model Busters.
Yeah, this is a follow-on from this team on the article that they put together, what makes superchargers and model busters, and they're now talking about various other dynamics in the market. What did you think about this, Kevin?
So A16Z has done a great job lately of educating early adopters and also entrepreneurs about adoption trends. Some of their survey work with 100 CEOs at different companies about where and how they're using AI. Great stuff. Unfortunately, this article is not of that ilk. This is informed, but it's ultimately in my view, a sales pitch to their investors about why all AI, purely about the upside case for AI investments. It's talking about how justifiably AI is going to change the nature of white collar work. It's going to expand the TAM to include trillions of dollars of white collar work that previously was off limits to software. It compares the investments that are taking place now to the space race and things like that. And I think ultimately there's really very little there that's of use to AI adopters. That yes, they see the upside. Yeah, they're going to keep investing. But what they need right now is a realistic look at how to handle the downside, how to handle the governance risks, something I've been talking about for a while. And I don't think this article really has any of that. It's a lot of hyperbole. Kind of reminds me of frenetic money managers in February 2000 who just kept talking about everything's just going to keep pointing up, and you kind of roll your eyes because it's not helpful.
Yeah, so the setup is very...
I would say optional.
Yeah, optional, right. So the setup is very interesting. I was wondering what is at the end. At the end was disappointing. Yeah, I'm with you, Kevin. What did you think about this, John?
Well, here we
Yeah,
go.
I was going to give it an important. I mean, I think you guys had a nice case in terms of how big the trend is, and I agree with you, the sales pitch, and it seems like the VCs are all doing this now, or at least a bunch of them are. But I think people are massively underestimating the job displacement and the existing software stack, transformation. It makes me laugh. People talk about, is it automation or augmentation? It's like, well, okay, let's say it's augmentation, and you have a team of 6 doing the work of 600. Well, those other 594 jobs are have been automated. You know, it's like, so it's all automation at the end of the day. And so I don't know. I'm not hard over on it, but I was thinking important.
I see. So they have, if you scroll down, Ankash, they have the table of 40 occupations with the highest applicability score,
Yeah.
AI applicability score that is it was initially from Microsoft. That's the
Yeah.
40 jobs that are at risk to AI, and that's
Yes.
for that table alone. I think it is an interesting, from that perspective, it's an interesting
Yes.
bit.
And as libertarian investors, they of course don't. They look at this with glee. It's like, yeah, it'd be great.
Tear it all down.
Okay, so Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I think
Really
important
important.
here. I think the notion earlier on the model, they talked about how many white collar jobs, and I think from a knowledge standpoint, ROI, looking at your knowledge workers over 90 or $100,000 is an important way to start understanding the improvement potential at companies. So important.
Important. Kevin, can you live with important?
I suppose I can.
Okay.
Grudgingly.
Grudgingly.
I'm not going to send it to any AI leaders I know,
That's
but
right.
I hear what you're saying.
Okay. Ankash, what was your thinking?
Important for me as well, Luda.
Okay. Important it is. Let's proceed to the next one.
Okay, the next one comes from China, and Baidu has unveiled its reasoning model, Ernie X 1.1.
Yeah, let me introduce this. So this is a model that goes on the prior models that they've introduced. It's a press release, product announcement. It's not quite known what these models would do. They claim high performance, they claim lower cost, they claim a lot of advantages in innovation in various like for reasoning, for speed of response in the non-reasoning model. So there's a lot of innovations here it seems, but I was between optional and important on this one. What did you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I think this is important. I think it reaffirms existing trends about the model race, about the nature of competition and the severity of competition from China. There's not a new aha
No.
piece of information here. Ultimately, it's extending a model race that we certainly are aware of.
Yeah, from that perspective, it's optional, but it's interesting, right? And they're a public company. They're putting some of this out there as open source. So yeah, maybe important. Okay, what did you think, John?
Yeah, I was between optional and important for these reasons. It's interesting you say public company. I don't know about these guys in particular, but you have to remember in the Chinese companies, a lot of times the government is intervening pretty heavily. We're starting to now with 10% of Intel and things like that, but we didn't used to. But because I think we're seeing a lot of, industrial policy get played out through these, mega companies in China. But so I think this is part of it's interesting to have a combination of there's a closed model announcement and a small and open model announcement. I don't know. I could go either way.
Okay. All right. Ankash, since you look at a lot of models, what were your thoughts?
Luda, I think optional from an AI leader perspective right now, especially based out of US, because I was just looking today at which all Chinese models are available on various cloud providers platforms. So I didn't come across anyone who is offering Baidu's models till now. So DeepSeek and Alibaba's models are being used by enterprises and they are being offered as well. So from that perspective, I think an optional news. but certainly Baidu is an upcoming competitor to all these models. And in this article, they mention that they provide performance similar to GPT-5 and Gemini 2.5 Pro. So certainly something to look forward to, but maybe optional at this time.
Okay, so Paul, we're going optional. What's your thinking?
Yeah, 100% optional. I thought Ankash agree with all your points here, but I just want to highlight where we are. So just 10 months ago, the world was absolutely shocked by DeepSeek coming out with VR3 and V3 in early December, an open source model that was 90% good as DeepSeek. 10 months later, these open source models from China are now a commodity. There's 15 plus open source models that were as good as the thing that shocked the world just 9 months ago. It's breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking.
Thanks, Paul, for summarizing it very well. It's really, it's true, it's breathtaking. We're in it every day, but the speed is unbelievable. Okay, let's proceed. So optional it is. Let's proceed to the next one, Ankash, please.
Sure, Luda. So the next one comes from AWS, and it's a case study about how Sky uses Amazon Bedrock agents to improve customer insights through data access and analysis.
Yeah, we love AWS cases because they present three things: the problem definition very well, how they did it, and then the results. And this is one of them. Kevin, what did you think about this?
Yeah, I agree, Luda. I think all these AWS articles in aggregate are a gold mine. In this particular case, we have this company Sky that is using analytics to provide different clients' insights into the performance of ad and marketing campaigns. And so this case study goes into a fair amount of detail about how they're using Amazon Bedrock and various elements of the Amazon AWS ecosystem to improve the analytics experience of their clients and to, through a natural language interface, help them answer various questions. So they've got some interesting testimonial quotes there about the value that they're getting by answering different operational questions and considering factors they hadn't considered before. They've also got, true to form, the architectural view of the different contributing elements. This is all good stuff. I think that the use case itself is not new. It's a good reminder that the nature of analytics is changing, and so the traditional BI layer is very much under attack from companies like AWS that can start to provide some pretty rich analytics experiences outside the traditional BI portal. What I found frustrating about this article, and I think a real limiting factor, and it's certainly true of a lot of content these days, is that you don't hear about hallucinations much. The simple fact is that a lot of these models can get things wrong. Now, in this particular case, they're using natural language processing probably to create SQL queries to pull up trusted facts from tables, but you can still get things wrong. And so OpenAI, no less than OpenAI, and this was essential reading from you guys last week, said, hey, hallucinations aren't going away anytime soon. We're trying, but they're going to be more than zero. And so I think there's one sentence and one reference to accuracy in the entire document. That's kind of a disservice to the reader. People need to understand not just the upside, but how to navigate the downside. So at risk of sounding like Eeyore, I think we need to look at more at the downside, and case studies like this should do that too. For that reason, I would say important, not essential.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kevin, for the whole overview. What did you think about this, John?
Important.
Important. Paul?
Important.
Okay. Yeah, I felt they did talk about hallucination. I think there's one mention about hallucination, but they didn't do the evals. They didn't talk about that side at all. So yeah, very important topic. Okay, important it is. Let's proceed then to the next one.
Okay, the next one comes from CNBC, and it talks about how Abu Dhabi has launched low-cost AI reasoning model in challenge to OpenAI and DeepSeek.
Yeah, so Abu Dhabi decided to put themselves out there as a leader in AI, and this is their entry point. This is an announcement, essentially a product announcement. and it's built on Quen model, and they fine-tuned it to be better than DeepSeek and OpenAI. So I was between optional and important again, because it's a product announcement. Yes, the folks locally can use that, and that is a good model, it appears. So, yeah. What did you think about this, Ankash, since you are very much into models these days?
Sure, Luda. So, Luda, I think so. Basically, important for me for two reasons. One is this university was one of the first model providers to offer open source models. I think when we were just discussing about GPT-4. So they had launched Falcon set of models, family of models earlier, right? And then they are doing this with G42, which is backed by Microsoft. So from a sovereign AI perspective, from an open source perspective, I think they will soon open source this one as well. That's my expectation. So everybody is focusing on sovereign AI. So we saw Mistral's recent investment by ASML in Mistral, focusing on the European model set. There is another vendor who is also preparing models specifically for Europe, and these ones from Middle East coming up. And we just discussed the Baidu model from China. So from a sovereign AI perspective, I think it's an important development.
How important it is for our AI leaders?
From an AI leader in US, Luda, I think these models that they have launched, they have good performance, but not at the same level as GPT-5 and the Anthropic models that we are using. So maybe not that useful to our set of leaders, but broadly, I think, because a lot of other countries are now starting experimenting with these models, and everybody is looking to get their own model set. So that's why important from that
And is
perspective.
important. Okay. Thank you, Ankash. Kevin, what were your thoughts?
I think this is optional. It's an affirmation of existing trends that are powerful. Parameter counts coming down, barriers to entry coming down, sovereign nations entering the fray. Interesting, but optional.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin. And John, what were you thinking? What was your thinking?
Yeah, I was thinking optional. We're working on a piece of thought leadership now about what is sovereign AI, and right now we've got 5 layers in it. There's the compute capability, there's the model, there's the data, there's the model, there's the ecosystem of talent and investing, and then there's partnerships. And it's interesting. It seems like very few nations are doing the full stack, and these guys seem to be doing it. But for the AI leader today, I would call it optional.
Optional. Yeah, interesting. So they are really innovators, right, Ankash, that you mentioned that they were one of the first ones. They're building their models slightly differently, not the transformer models altogether. So, and also they're using Celesta, right, rather than NVIDIA chips. So it's actually, they're pushing the boundary in a number of ways. But okay, let's put it optional, Paul. Okay, optional.
Yeah, optional. Yeah, one could just footnote at the Stanford event yesterday at the reception, I met three people that came from Europe. They've recently moved to the Valley within the last month. One from Switzerland, one from Belgium, one from France, and the loyalty that they have for their countries back there is really strong. And I think just from a talent retention standpoint, having a full stack like that and some government help in the ecosystem will at least attract and keep some of that talent in their country, because they're all leaving right now. Not all, but many are leaving.
Great. Okay, optional it is. Let's proceed to the next one, Ankash.
Sure. The last one comes from NVIDIA, and they have unveiled Rubin CPX. It's a new class of GPU which is designed for massive context inference.
Yes. John, what did you think about this very powerful chip that
Yeah.
they introduced?
Yeah, I definitely gave this an optional. It's not available to the end of 2026. I think they're trying to do. I think this is part of the campaign of how do you support, a $4 trillion market cap.
Yeah.
The effort, which is, you can spend a lot of money trying to support that, and still come out net good. The the trends in here about faster response times, better context, and better video analysis, I think are absolutely essential in terms of things that are happening. This notion of I thought it was interesting. It's repeated a number of times. Spend 100 million and make 5 billion in token revenue. They don't give any details about how they come up with that. I think that's a totally specious argument. I think by the end of 2026, we don't know what token pricing is going to be, and it's falling by at least 10x per year. So, the commercial claim feels kind of desperate, which is weird because NVIDIA usually doesn't do that. So that's why I think they're looking at their stock price and saying, how do we make sure we tell the market, we're worth it. So interesting technical details, important features that they are going to deliver, not available today, and a kind of breathless promise of a 50x return, which is completely unfounded. I mean, unsupported. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just no data on how they support it.
Yeah. But interesting, isn't it? The preview is interesting, and they're working with the likes of Cursor to try it and see how they can leverage that those capabilities on the chip. What did you think about this, Kevin?
I agree with John's points. I think it's optional. Affirmation of existing trends. Some of the language is a little hyperbolic, characteristic of these heady times.
Okay. All right. We're going optional. Paul? Okay.
Yes.
Ankash, okay?
Yes, Luda.
All right. So optional it is. Let's proceed to the scorecard. And as we're doing so, Paul, John, any more insights from the conference you've been at?
Yeah, go ahead, John. Why don't you start?
Yeah, I think that the thing that we see again and again is the how quickly some of the applications are really getting out there, and then the need for capability building inside organizations, I think, is what we're seeing. The one thing I was kind of I think there isn't much of, and this is why I like that NYU Microsoft paper so much, is I don't think people have thought through what the organizations and markets of the future are going to be. And I know it's speculative at this point, but there's a lot of thought on speeds and feeds. There's a lot of unbelievable innovation, but the first order and second order effects on organizations and markets are just beginning to come into view. So I think it's a time of great opportunity for the brave.
For the brave. That's true. Paul, anything?
Yeah, just so many. I think there was 1,500 people there. It was unbelievable conference. Huge amount of talent, and so many takeaways. A few that really stuck with me. One, the senior engineer from Waymo. It's breathtaking what's going on in Waymo. The amount of safety, and one of the things they do is they're actually building their own foundation model because they need such precise results now. They can't get it from any others one. The other notable, another one that stuck with me, there was a panel of 4 CIOs, and the CIO from Juniper Networks said, hands down, Kevin, the traditional source of records not going away. I'm not moving my sales force, but I'm just not paying that much premium for all those extra features. That has to go down. And then the guy, I forget the company, he gave a great example of Workday as their source of record. They're paying, I don't know, $1 million a year for Workday's performance management. Some of the employees did a vibe coding, lovable in a performance management tool themselves that passes compliance. Everyone loves it. And now they're actively trying to turn off that thing. So there's this kind of coming in and carving out different pieces of that traditional enterprise SaaS thing is very real. one. Two other things quickly. There was a lot of Stanford. Stanford had like 7 people from the medical school, and they really are doing some interesting things on having the ChatGPT integrated with EHRs. And on there was another panel with the 3 experts from Stanford security, and the security, Kevin, with vibe coding, boy, it is, at some point they're going to automate some more security, but right now it's vibe coding, worry about prompt injection later here. And this will absolutely come back to bite companies.
Yeah, totally. Okay.
Interesting times.
Interesting times for the brave. Okay, so today we had one essential, two importance, and the rest were optional. So thank you, Kevin, for contributing.
Luda,
Thank you.
Luda, I think Kevin wants to talk about just tell him the research that Bark is kicking off.
Oh, okay. Please, Kevin, you have a minute.
Thank you. I appreciate it. My colleague Merv Adrian, Bark Fellow, former Gartner, are kicking off a survey-based report on unstructured data management to support AI. Unstructured data has so much context, hard to govern, hard to prepare, but very valuable. We're going to take a look at that. If you're wrestling with this as an AI leader, I'd love to hear from you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kevin, and thank you for being succinct. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Ashish, Valda, Ram, for listening and commenting. And we'll see you all tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.